In the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, the internet has exploded with conspiracies, each claiming to uncover what really happened. Millions of people believe that we're witnessing one of the biggest cover-ups in recent memory. However, I was one of those who found some of the theories that lacked hard evidence to be incredibly irresponsible and even potentially dangerous. But as I started to do more research, I began to see why these sorts of conspiracy theories felt so persuasive, why they reveal something deep in human nature, and how the need to never be deceived can end up becoming the very thing that deceives us the most. So let's unpack what happens when distrust becomes a religion. Okay, and real quick before we start, I just want to be clear that this video is not about everyone who listens to or believes in some conspiracies. Nor does it mean that conspiracies are always false, because they aren't. This video is about the psychology behind the conspiracies and what happens when we allow them to consume us. All right? Now, let's get into it. If you've ever wondered how someone can go deep down the rabbit hole to the point of being extreme, well, this is how. Let's be honest, people didn't just wake up one day and decide to stop believing in the official narratives. Over time, we watched how we were deceived by the very institutions that were supposed to tell the truth. For some, it was church scandals. For others, media that never apologized for lies. And for millions, Epstein was the final straw. Nearly everyone, no matter their politics, started to feel like they're trying to deceive you wasn't paranoia anymore, it was common sense. So when someone like Candace says that the government is lying, it lands. It already feels familiar. And honestly, believing in conspiracies doesn't make you crazy, it just means you're human. I mean, take a look at what Jordan Peterson said here.
That means I'm someone else because I thought I knew what was going on, and clearly I don't.
Jordan Peterson was explaining why betrayal is one of the most traumatizing things that a person can experience. When you trust someone, you build your understanding of the past, the present, and the future around that trust. It's what gives life stability. But when that trust breaks, everything collapses. The past starts to feel like a lie. The present feels unsafe. The future you imagine disappears. And suddenly, you're not just questioning that person, you start questioning yourself.
You were someone else, and that means I'm someone else because I thought I knew what was going on, and clearly I don't. I'm some sort of blind sucker or the victim of a psychopath, or someone who's so naive that they can barely live, and I don't understand anything about human beings, and I don't understand anything about myself. I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow or next week or next year. It's like all of that certainty, that habitable certainty, collapses right back into the potential from which it emerged.
And that's also what happens to a society when it loses its trust in the people who were supposed to tell the truth. Collectively, we felt, I was deceived. I can't trust them. I'm not who I thought I was. We didn't just lose faith in the authorities. We lost faith in our ability to make sense of the world, and subconsciously, we started to feel unsafe. Psychologists call this epistemic anxiety, the discomfort of not knowing what's true, and our brains can't live there for long. So to relieve that anxiety, we reach for stories that fill in the gaps, stories that make the world make sense again. And even if they're false, they still feel safer than the ambiguity that comes from not knowing. Studies show that the type of people that are drawn to conspiratorial thinking aren't stupid, they just tend to be more vigilant. They tend to have a deep need for certainty, control, and meaning in a world that feels unpredictable. And nearly 100 studies found that conspiratorial thinking often correlates with a high intolerance for ambiguity, a distrust of authority, and the craving for hidden patterns. In other words, when the world feels untrustworthy, conspiracy theories give us a map, and even if it's the wrong map, it still feels better than being lost. And that primes us for something like a conversion moment. We're ready to fully embrace the belief that suspicion can save us from deceit. If you look to my last video on Candace Owens, the comment section predictably included those who were against her and those who passionately defended her with angry comments like these. But if you pay close enough attention, you'll notice how tightly people cling to conspiracies, sometimes even at the cost of family, friendships, or even unsubscribing from their favorite Christian YouTubers. But really, why would a Christian unsubscribe from other Christian channels that they once enjoyed just because the creator questioned Candace Owens' claims? Well, the reason why is because conspiracies don't just give people information, they give them something much stronger. Remember how so many of us felt, I was deceived. I can't trust the authorities or institutions. I guess I'm not who I thought I was. Well, that same pattern sticks with us when we find comfort in conspiracy theories. But now it sounds more like this. I'll be skeptical so I won't be deceived again. I can only trust those who are skeptical of the authorities and institutions, because now I'm not the kind of person who's easily deceived. And that actually helps to regain a sense of who you are. You're not just someone searching for truth anymore, you're someone who sees through the lies. You're one of those who gets it, who's awake. I mean, you know the vibe. You're watching a video exposing the truth about the truth about the truth, and somehow you feel more informed than everyone you know. And by the way, asking questions is a good thing, and everyone should have a healthy dose of skepticism. But once it gets a hold of your identity, it's powerful. It gives you belonging and makes you part of a tribe of people who see what others can't. And the way you see everything starts to change. You start seeing the world through the eyes of suspicion, and everything fits into one story. Good people are being lied to, and you're one of the few who finally see it. But eventually, that belonging becomes sort of a loyalty test of who you can and who you can't trust. So when others don't agree with the conspiracy, they aren't just seen as wrong, they're seen as the type of person you can't trust. They're too easily deceived. And this is where it starts to function like its own religion. It's not just belief anymore, it's belonging, a kind of faith community. You've got the prophets, the heretics, and even rituals, the daily scroll through the hidden truths. And once you're this deep, every challenge starts to feel like betrayal, and that's where lives quietly start to fall apart. But before we get into that, and because this video is literally about trust and what happens when we lose it, we have to talk about the sponsor of today's video that helps with that, Aura. If you've ever wondered how scammers get your phone number or why your inbox is flooded with spam, well, this is why. There's these companies called data brokers that sell your data. They do it without your consent, and they make billions of dollars selling it to marketers, scammers, and even stalkers. And while they're legally required to remove your information if you ask, they make the process confusing and hard on purpose. And that's why I'm thankful for Aura. They take care of the hard part, automatically removing your information from these sites and keeping it off. Aura also monitors the dark web for your phone number, email address, and your social security number, and will quickly notify you if someone is trying to use your information to open up an account. And even better, if something ever does happen, they'll cover you with up to $5 million of identity theft insurance. The app also comes with a bunch of other safety features as well, so you can go to my link aura.com/whatdoyoumean to try 14 days for free, and that'll be enough time for Aura to see if any of your personal data has been exposed, so that way you can learn about it before one of these companies are forced to notify you. So go to aura.com/whatdoyoumean or click the link below to try 2 weeks for free. All right? Now, let's get back to talking about how finding your safety in suspicion takes you down a very, very dark path. When a belief system becomes your identity, something subtle happens. When a critic says that doesn't add up, what you hear is, you're gullible, you fell for another lie. Same wound all over again. And because no one wants to be the fool twice, the instinct is to try to reverse it. You tell them that they're the ones that are really blind, and they're the ones who can't see what's really happening. The accusation gets mirrored back in the form of self-protection. It's less about truth and more about feeling sane. We see it online every day. Someone debunks a claim, and instead of people saying, okay, maybe I got that one wrong, they say, of course they'd say that. They're part of the system too. This is how you can start to see the trap. To question the revelation is to prove that you were never truly awake, or worse, that you're also in on it. Evidence against the conspiracy somehow becomes even more evidence of a cover-up. And once speculation becomes doctrine, any evidence that you use against their theories just make their faith in that theory stronger. And the irony of all of this is that in trying not to be deceived, it can sometimes make you even easier to be deceived. The same framing of issues gets recycled, now by people trying to dodge accountability. Andrew Tate's Matrix attacks, Billy Carson's Christian Mafia claims, Terrence Howard's elites, and of course the infamous they language.
They don't want them looking at, that they don't want the public at large looking at.
They don't like me because they can't intimidate me. They want us afraid of me.
Vague enough to dodge proof and specific enough to absorb our fears. And by the way, after listening to countless hours of conspiracy theories, they has now become my least favorite pronoun. But anyways, the formula is the same. Confidence, outrage, and a promise that they're the crusader who knows the truth that they are hiding from you. But here's the painful reality. The harder that you cling to that protection, the more it starts to protect you from reality itself. And the more you fight being deceived, the more that the fear of deception ends up deceiving you. Conspiracies promise truth and clarity, But the deeper you go, the harder it gets to know who to trust or even what counts as evidence anymore. In fact, I've never met anyone who's come out of those rabbit holes with more peace. But I've met plenty whose relationships and even their marriages have been damaged because of them. One couple said that conspiracies nearly ended their marriage because the skepticism that was supposed to protect them started turning inward, looking for hidden motives, secret agendas, even inside of their home. The spouse who once felt safe now felt interrogated, and the harder they tried to prove their innocence, the guiltier they looked. That's what happens when distrust becomes doctrine. Families and communities that once shared faith and friendship split over theories that no one could prove. Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that everyone who listens to conspiracies are going to end up here, but many do. Eventually, skepticism hardens into cynicism, and underneath it all is a deeper loss, not just of relationships, but also of your peace. And the worst part is, even if one of those conspiracies turns out to be true, and by the way, some conspiracies have been proven to be true in the past, but even if one of them does, it still doesn't give you the relief that you hoped for, because the problem was never just the lies, it was the fear underneath the lies. And that fear is a cruel and unforgiving God. Here's the thing that no one tells you. We weren't built to know everything. The first lie we ever believed was that God was hiding something from us, and that if we just saw what he sees, we'd finally feel safe. But that lie didn't give us control. It poisoned us with distrust. The only way out of the paranoia loop is to let go of a need to know everything and finding peace in the one who already does. Because that's the kind of trust that gives you a better story. I don't have to know everything. I can trust the one who does, and he has never lied to me. And when you believe in the gospel, you start to build an identity that isn't fragile and isn't defensive because you aren't valued based on how much you know or how much you can find out or knowing more than other people. You're valuable because the creator of this universe loved you enough to die for you. Real peace doesn't come from an obsession of trying to figure out every hidden secret. It comes from trusting in the one who never lies, never hides, and never leaves you guessing about his motives. You can cast your anxieties on him because he cares for you. And you no longer have to find your safety in knowing and seeing everything clearly, but instead being known and being seen clearly by him. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching until the end. Now, the goal of this channel isn't just to make videos. It's to help people who are drowning in this confusing world rediscover truth, peace, and a gospel that never changes. So if you believe in this mission, we'd love for you to be part of it. There's a link down below where you can support this ministry, and together we can help more people trade paranoia for peace and suspicion for trust in Christ. Alright, thanks for watching, and see you guys on the next one.